Oh, hey guys.
Oh, hi.
How's it going, my dudes?
Could be better. Could be worse.
So Dale, would you like to kind of take lead in this case? I still have to finish my game.
Well, sure, I suppose. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another Thursday, another Gwentlemen Talkshow. Well, we try and improve on the intros week after week, and I think this week has been a good one. But as always, I am Dale the White Wolf, joined by Swim. How you doing, Swim?
Oh no, man, I'm great.
How's the game?
It's going pretty well.
Nice. We also have SnikiSnek with us today, filling in for Jaggerous. How you doing, Sniky? Or is it Snake?
SnikiSnek. I'm fine, if you can say that.
Yeah, Jaggerous had a little bit of a last-minute snafu. I don't have all the details, but I think it's her internet is acting up, so unfortunately, she's not able to join us today.
But we do have our very special guest, Crash. How are you doing, Crash?
I'm doing great. Just using.
Yeah,
Nice.
I mean, a little bit about our. Oh, I guess we almost have two guests. SnikiSnek is a partner of Gwentlemen. He does a little bit of work for us behind the scenes. So and Crash is he's Crash. Who doesn't know who Crash is? He's a top 10 pro ladder player. He's popularized a couple decks, and he's a member of the team Red Coin. Is that right? Yeah, I mean, would you like to tell them a little bit about that?
Oh, well, Red Coin is essentially just like a group of really competitive players that have known each other from like previous games, and we just decided to build this team and see what we can actually achieve in Gwent if we like put it all into it and like build some really solid decks and just try it pro ladder, and we'll see what we get.
Great.
I mean, yeah. Swim. I mean, Redcoin's already making names for themselves already, though. Multiple high ladder placements for all of your members, if I'm not mistaken. And already spawning off the, I guess, alternate evil, maybe not evil. I'm not sure what's going on with this whole story, but I know that Blue Coin is also out there.
Oh yeah, no, there's actually a third team as well, because there's one member who's actually in both teams, Red Dream, and he's in his own team, which is 1 coin, 2 coin, Red Coin, Blue Coin.
He has posted one deck for that team, and ladder, NR, FMMR, and it's an amazing deck, really an experience to play. Quite enjoy. Not evil or the good faction, it is the meme variant of Red.
Yeah, that's kind of the impression I had going on. But yeah, that's been a little bit of a thing that's cropped up recently. But yeah, no, I expect a lot of you guys will, start hearing about Redcoin. They're going to be, participating in things, putting their name up, and a lot of very solid players coming out from there. So
Definitely.
Anyway, in terms of what we have to talk about today, we're going to be talking a little bit about the current meta and where we see that going on, and a little bit about the future tournaments. We can also cover a little bit of, I guess, the Salvian event and the patch. But so far for you guys, we are at it's been like 10 days since the patch. Is that right? I don't have the date count correct, but that's the ballpark. It's been about a week and a half since the patch, and obviously a lot of people have said it hasn't been a super big patch. How is everybody feeling about where the meta is at and about the impact that the patch had? Are we happy, unhappy? Starting with Crash, go. That's your comment?
Generally, yeah, pretty much. Spies Untouched is not something I'm happy about. I absolutely hate that deck. Otherwise, I think the patch is actually in a pretty good spot. I think all the factions are fairly evenly balanced, except the spy list that I absolutely loathe. But it's okay. It's a personal preference type thing.
SnikiSnek, how are you feeling?
I'm actually happy with the patch. I agree with Crash that Nilfgaard Spice could be nerfed a little bit, but I feel like it introduced a lot of new variants. Like Scoia'tael is finally a decent faction. Save for Spellatael, they now have several archetypes that are competitive. And yeah, pretty much. At first, I thought that this meta was like a repeating of the previous one, but now I see that it's more diverse and there are many new interesting options available, I'd say.
And Dale.
I was going to say, that's certainly my feel for this patch as well. It feels like there was, of the new cards introduced, and I mean, there are 29 new cards. Over time, it's becoming less and less significant of a impact over the overall card base. Yeah. And I think this time people were just like, 21 cards, it's a lot of cards, but I don't feel like the meta is going to change that much. And I think it has. I think that it's kind of shifting into its own now. We're starting to see where this is going, and it's different from the last meta, although it's a little similar. It's a maturing Gwent meta, I feel. Like it's getting to the point now that we can add these new cards, and we're starting to get a feel for what the coming months of Gwent are going to feel like when you're playing.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, that's pretty much why a lot of people have, compared to other expansions, these 20 cards expansions that they've had in the past, a lot of them have felt like they've had more of an impact because the card pool is naturally going to be smaller back then. Like back in, February, March when they were doing this, it always shook things up because there wasn't as established of a card pool. But at this point, we might be needing, sometime relatively soon, a larger kind of expansion style update if they want to really, really shake up the meta with one of these new bundles of cards.
Yeah, I think it just goes to the overall expanding card base. I mean, they said that they wanted to do 20 new cards every 2 months, and they've been sticking fairly consistent with that schedule. And over time, I mean, 20 cards whenever we only have like 300 cards to play with, that's a good chunk of percentage. And then you get 20 new cards now, and it's like, it's still a good chunk. It's just not as like meta shaking.
So in terms of the decks that we have right now, Crash, you were saying you felt pretty much everything felt balanced except for Spies was a little too strong and a little too consistent, you were saying, and everything else felt evenly balanced. I'm curious what you all think of the state of the meta is right now in terms of the decks that we expect are maybe a little too strong, a little too weak. I know it's maybe a little bit of a popular opinion that Monsters and Northern Realms are slightly on the weaker ends of things. What do you think about that, Crash? I feel like you might disagree.
Honestly, it kind of depends on what type of monsters and NR you feel like playing, because monsters have a few different variants that all feel relatively different in where their strengths lie. If you play a more control-oriented monsters list, it's going to do better versus other decks, and then Consume, obviously, is a coin flip deck, so it's just going to lose or win some, like auto-win deck. So it's just going to win or lose some matchups. So it's kind of like you have no control over if you win or lose, really. And so it probably feels a bit worse than, say, Spies, where as long as you play really, really, really well, you can kind of beat pretty much the whole field. NR also has some problems as well. It doesn't really have that big boom as far as other decks are concerned. But I think they're not that much weaker, per se, than the other factions. Maybe SK and Spies, or like SK and Spies Nilfgaard are like that slightly stronger, and then Scoia'tael, Nilfgaard, and not Nilfgaard, Scoia'tael and
Northern Realms,
are also
yeah. No, that honestly that sounds just about right with what I would personally say. SnikiSnek, how are you feeling? I mean,
I feel like I'm a little bit disappointed with the state of Northern Realms at the moment. I don't think there are like really strong tier 1, high tier 2 decks at the moment. Like we have machines. I personally play machines a lot, but I feel like they've been underperforming against like I have troubles with hand buff especially, and monsters. I can comment on monsters because I don't play monsters, and I have never seen monsters for like last 2 days I've been playing on ladder, so
yeah.
So I think they're in a worse spot than they were last patch.
Yeah, that sounds just about right. I mean, we're basically in direct comparison mode because, of course, the patch was not, super big. It feels more like, it feels closer to one of the kind of patches like the rebalancing style patches instead of like the new card edition style patches. Like Dale, what are you thinking exactly about it? About the the tierings?
I definitely agree. Nilfgaard Spies it's a very consistent deck, and consistency is key whenever you're trying to just have a nice solid deck. Well, overall, it's just like, hey, I'm gonna play points, and I'm gonna play points, and I'm gonna play my finisher. And then you look at other factions out there, and I just echo the Northern Realms because I was playing a lot of machines, and it was weird because they're like, all right, cool, like I've got like the first half, I play points, and then I play points, and then I play my I don't have a finisher, I'm Northern Realms, like there's just nothing to stop with.
Yeah.
So it has done, I will say, machines, and I almost want to say like Northern Realms Swarm both kind of follow that same play style of, they're pretty solid. I think a tier 2 deck where you go over the 25 card minimum, you just throw out a bunch of stuff, and you keep throwing out stuff as the game continues, and you do okay. Scoia'tael Handbuff, I think, is in a much better spot than it was at any other point. That we want to talk about new cards for actually helping out, then for sure Swordmasters just kind of revitalized that deck and brought it up quite a bit since it was. And I do agree that Scoia'tael finally is nice, where it's, hey, I can play Scoia'tael again, and maybe people don't complain as much as the last time Scoia'tael was in about this power level relative to other factions. As far as Skellige is concerned, I don't think... I mean, Restore has gotten nerfed twice now, or, well, buffed, nerfed thing. And it's still just chugging along doing its thing. So I think Skellige is still in a very strong spot as well. So I'd probably put my two top factions right now as Nilfgaard and Skellige.
I honestly...
I
agree with what you were saying.
Oh, wow, that was done. Just
my apologies. I agree with what you were saying, that like the patch feels like it was kind of best for Scoia'tael. Not even in terms of like a power level, but it feels like Scoia'tael has a little bit of extra diversity. I love what they've done with hand buff. I love that they've kind of slapped that tag on a bronze. And I think that Gwent has been in a state where, a lot of cards have a good handful, maybe like a dozen, have kind of gotten that same treatment with like an effect of a silver or a gold being put onto a bronze to enable an archetype. My question here, and this is a bit of an interesting question, you guys might have to think a little bit, but I'm curious if you guys have any cards in mind that are golds or silvers that you feel like really should be put onto bronzes. Now, not necessarily the entire transference of the card, but the spirit behind the effect of a gold or silver being put onto a bronze to empower or enable an archetype or a package. Any thoughts? Because it's honestly...
Yeah.
Of course, the first obvious card is prize-winning cow. No, but maybe honestly something that gives maybe a more swarmy type of monsters list some additional power would be maybe a Mountain Tart type of combo, where maybe instead of consuming your graveyard, you kind of get points depending on how many tokens you have on board. Something like that could be interesting to see. Enables swarm monsters to be a thing again that hasn't been seen in months now. Other than that, I don't know. Not anything off the top of my head.
Yeah, for me personally, there are two gold cards which I guess spirit or idea I would like to see on bronzes. One of them being the latest edition of Ale of the Ancestors, because I like the idea of positive weathers, but I feel like at the current moment it's very disruptible. Like the strategy of there is like the deck with Marauders. But it's really easy to disrupt, and I feel like you sacrifice a lot for a gold slot, maybe even to run Renew when your keg get instantly destroyed. And the second card is actually Bloody Baron, because his effect is interesting, but due to the gold change, he is not actually that good of a card anymore, because you can't really use him as a finisher.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with this kind of thing, and I think that's one of the steps Gwent kind of needs moving forward, is kind of like figuring out what it wants to print on bronzes and silvers and what it wants to print, bronzes and then silvers and golds, because they've had a bit of a changing their mind in a couple ways of like switching a lot of things to bronzes, but I think they have the right mentality now. They're printing more of these things on bronzes. The thing about Baron, just a little bit risky, is that Baron is a card more swingy than something like Morntart, which would be a bit awkward because in certain matchups, like having 3 Barons would probably be too much, and it wouldn't necessarily. I don't know. It's a lot swingier depending on the matchup, so I'm not sure about that. Dale, what do you think?
That's a really tough question. I've been, I'll like shout out a random like silver or gold card later in the talk show, and y'all are just remember that that's from me answering this question. No problem. Then. So I mean, this is.
What can I say? I was actually going through the collection and just looking at possible golds that would be really interesting. And I think there's a perfect one. They could literally just copy paste it onto a bronze, and I think it would make the game really interesting. It would be Kambi.
Can't be how bad.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. No, I'm not too sure about that one. What I was personally thinking was Hjalmar as well. Obviously, numbers would have to be tweaked. None of these changes would be even feasible without looking at number tweaks. But the card of Hjalmar, which gives you kind of a little mini quest of controlling a thing and then making you big, it fits better with like a slightly smaller body, so you don't have to worry about Scorch as much. But some people are suggesting Scorcher Protection works instead as a bit of an alternative to that. But it's a bit of an interesting kind of thought experiment. I mean, that's the kind of thing that you, as a developer of this game, really have to spend a lot of time thinking about. It's not the kind of question that really us players often, I guess, ask ourselves,
Definitely not.
I don't know. So, what were you saying, Sniki?
After you brought up this question, I've been wondering about maybe bronzes that could be potentially made silvers and golds. Because after they've announced that there would be 21 card, 1 extra for Skellige for Weatherclear, I've been actually thinking that they might move Armor Smith's effect to the silver.
Yeah, when you said that, I immediately thought of Armor Smith.
Yeah, because his effect is... Honestly, I feel like it's too good for a bronze card.
Yeah, and of course, everyone keep in mind that this would just be the spirit of the card. Like, obviously, Sniki's not proposing that they take literally what the card is right now with the numbers that the card is right now and put it onto silver. The numbers would be adjusted, and we're just talking about, the kind of design potential of, like, how they fit the slots in question. Anyway, so there has been a bit of... Okay, so... The new cards that we're given, obviously, a lot of them are a little skewed towards maybe meme potential. There's Foul Ale, there's Avalak the Sage, there's Crow's Eye. There are kind of a lot of, I guess, joke things going around right now. A lot of players like Pumpkin, for example, have been playing a lot of Avalak the Sage, and we're even seeing some new meme decks run Crow's Eye. Who started this Crow Guard? Actually.
Zane?
Does anybody? Was it Zane who started it?
I think so.
I'm not familiar with Crowguard. What's all involved with that?
It's basically like a Crow's Eye reveal Nilfgaard package. It's something, for example, like something that I've seen around. Anyway, there's a lot of these kind of new meme decks that have popped up. I mean, that, if anything, is kind of the identity of this patch, because pretty much half the cards we've gotten have been, kind of more funny cards. What is your guys' favorite meme deck or card from this patch? Starting with Crash.
It's the newest one, but I love it. I absolutely love it. No, not to say it's a meme, it's just very unusual. Lose to Win, Red Raim's Lose to Win. It's a legitimate deck. It's just a bit unusual, and that's why I love it.
Now, could you describe the deck for those of us who might not be familiar?
Well, here let me just point out that this deck only has about 9 units, if I'm 12 units, sorry. And the main goal of the deck is it's an NR deck that has DBLC. So the problem with DBLC is that sometimes you can't get them out, right? You can't fall 20 points behind tempo. So the whole point of the deck is to constantly be behind tempo and always guarantee yourself to get DBLC, and therefore you win.
Yeah, no, I've tinkered around with kind of similar concepts in the past, but I saw his deck and it's definitely something else.
It's amazing.
Yeah, no, honestly, Red Dream is actually proving himself to be one of the most creative deck builders right now. He's come up with a lot of really original decks in the past. I mean, since he started playing in the past like couple of months.
Essentially.
Snicky?
My answer would be a boring one. I don't play meme decks. I don't love meme decks because whenever I have not a lot of time to play Gwent, so when I play it, I try hard. But if we take all like meme cards, my favorite is probably Avalak the Sage. I've been watching Pumpkin, and he plays this card a lot. It has a little, like it's like me, Yoxeron of Gwent. It's really fun to watch.
And Dale.
Also, yeah.
Or
were you gonna say something, Sneaky?
Yeah. I just wanted to add that, to be fair, at the beginning of the patch, I was considering Foul Ale as competitive card.
So. A lot of people were, honestly. It's a Foul Ale. What do you got for us, Dale?
As far as individual cards, I think Avalok the Sage just takes the cake here. I mean, the amount of times I have seen him pull just nothing, just absolutely nothing for the opponent has been fantastic. Like, it's just but no, as far as like overall Mimi decks, does Campy still count? Like, it keeps floating on like the edge of like actual consistency, which kind of scares me.
No, Dale, Campy still counts.
In that case, I've got to go with Campy, because for sure, like, going into round 3 against Nilfgaard, and like, or not Nilfgaard, going into round 3 against Nilfgaard against Skellige, and being down like 2 cards, and you're just like, why am I getting card advantage? Oh shit! Like, it's fun. It's not fun to be on the receiving of it, but it is fun.
Okay.
What about you, Swim?
Oh, me. Oh, I was. You guys stole my answer. I was just gonna say I like the Sage. I don't know. You know what? I really like the idea of Foul Ale. I think that the concept of Foul Ale is great. I wish it gave you, instead of giving you like a gold or silver from your deck, if it gave you like something more like a random card or something, that'd be a lot funnier.
Like discover mechanic, right?
Yeah, kind of like that.
Discover.
Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't necessarily mind discovering this game. It's a pretty great trade-off of having like a little bit of RNG, but also like a good amount of tactics.
No, I think for Avalok the Sage, the most fun scenarios had occurred is when my opponent pulled 2 Borgs from my deck to scorch himself.
Yeah. So regarding the meta that we're in, because that's if I had to pick, that's kind of like the topic of the day. Is there any decks or strategies that you guys think is a bit of a dark horse right now? Something that's maybe just a little bit underrated that you secretly think might have. Now this can be something crazy, or it can be something that you just kind of like happen to think something maybe a little bit better than people are giving it credit for, or it can be a crazy conspiracy theory about like something that that you just secretly think has some real potential to it. Crash, do you have anything?
Not much. There's some experimentation going on.
You think pretty much everything is kind of like solved or figured out for the most part?
Not necessarily solved. It's just I don't think there's like this. Oh yeah, there's this secret NR list that's just better than every other deck. There's this secret monsters list that can't lose ever. I don't think it's anything like that. I think NR definitely hasn't been figured out yet. I think there are stronger decks yet to be made. Just because NR as like almost the faction identity is a lot of okay units. So finding the best combination of okay units to build your deck is really tough because everything is so similar in strength. But when you do get that perfect combination, it tends to be very strong.
Yeah, I honestly, I gotta say, you kind of, that I couldn't have put it better myself. That's pretty much how I feel about NR right now as well. What do you think, Sniky?
I might say a very dumb thing right now, but
no, man, it's okay. This is the time for dumb things.
Yeah, maybe like self-wounding Skellige has a potential right now because there isn't a lot of movement. Like movement-heavy decks aren't very prevalent at the moment, and the very limited movement that they can have, like with the Ragoray, can be negated by Flaminica. So
by self-wounding, do you mean like great swords and long chips self-wounding?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that kind of package. Yeah.
So,
I mean that's something. Yeah, I mean that's a deck that can do very, very well when there's just not movement to be found. Dale,
I'm thinking less of a deck and more of, so historically we've seen metas where it's better to go tall, we've seen metas where it's better to go wide, and I don't think that we've really figured out what the meta is looking like right now. We don't know if it's better to try and just swarm the board with a bunch of stuff. We don't know if it's better to just stack a couple of units, and because of that, I think that cards related to not necessarily movement, but like scorch effects, a little bit of movement, just like row wide effects, stuff like that. I feel that there's decks that can properly take advantage of that aren't yet, and just because they don't know what to expect whenever you queue up. So because of that, I think Spellatel's probably in the best position to take full advantage of that once the meta settles. So it'll be interesting to see. I think just this play on what's better consistently. Is it better to just constantly have like a 38 strength unit and a 36 strength unit, or is it better to just try and spread that out across all of your rows and go as wide as possible? And I don't think that that's solved yet.
Yeah. No, I can totally see that. Well, for me, I'm gonna go basically full conspiracy theory. I feel like Camby, if given the right additional tools in the right deck, I feel like the card is a lot closer than people think to being competitive. I mean,
it really is.
It got some serious tools in this patch. One or two tools more, especially something in bronze, easily could be the tipping point for that card. Crash, I saw you laughing a little bit there. Do you think that's completely insane?
No, I'm just not sure if you mean cards that are already in the game currently or cards that will be added.
Cards that will be added. Okay. I think it's very close.
Then yeah, I can totally see it. I was thinking more of a perspective of like what's already in the game and has somebody who hasn't figured it out yet. And Combi, you know, I don't think it's a secret Combi list that's just gonna win.
So
absolutely. Go right ahead, Sniky.
I'm just that's the question I wanted to ask you guys for like several minutes right now.
Sure, man.
If we're talking about meta, about the current patch, so like the last patch, we all will remember the last patch, right?
Yeah.
Like the Gwent is dead. Everybody was playing Arena.
God, yeah, that.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that in comparison, the last patch was like it was a big change to the game.
Yeah.
This patch, however, is a little bit smaller in comparison, and as far as I understand, we don't expect to see another patch for 2 months, right?
Yeah.
So, do you think this can get like problematic, or I don't know how to say it, like very damaging for us?
Oh, you mean like permanent damage to like the player base, and like some people might like leave and that get hooked on Magic the Gathering Arena and never come back.
Yes, sort of.
I mean, honestly, that's definitely a bit of a threat to the game to a degree. That's A complex issue for sure. I'm not 100% sure where I stand there.
It'd be nice to have the game have like a self-regulating meta where there's enough tools in the game itself and your cards that if a meta shifts too far this way, the players can themselves change it by just putting in their tech choices. Yeah. And that way you could actually have like 2 months without a patch, no problem. I'm not sure if the game is at that point yet. So
well, Crash, I think that's a great point. I have a couple questions then. Do you think that the fundamental format of Gwent in some way limits the ability for that to be the case, maybe a little bit more so? It's a little bit harder for that to be the case than other games? Or do you just think it's a card pool issue?
I think it's potentially a card balance issue more than a card pool issue. Because we don't have enough good cards. We have enough cards, enough. There's never enough cards, but we have enough cards, right, to be able to like self-balance. But we don't have enough good cards to actually self-balance. Like you can't play T-Bomb, you can't play Letho. They're just not actual cards you can play, even if people are going really high and you just want to like punish, buffing and whatnot. So I think the main issue is honestly there's just so many dead cards in the game right now that nobody would play, not because the meta doesn't fit, they're just strictly worse or just not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, most competitive players will tell you, and of course this is coming from competitive players, so of course a lot of things become non-competitive for them, but most competitive players will probably tell you that even maybe like a majority of the cards in the game fall into that category, a very large amount. It's definitely a little bit of an issue. And from the new cards that got printed, since we're talking about those, Catapult to me really represents that. It's I see that look in your eye. Catapult. It's Catapult being a worse version of a card that already had a worse version of it in the game, that being Reinforced Trebuchet. It's not too inspiring in terms of really kind of mixing up the card pool and diversifying and creating these new decks. But yeah, no, I completely agree again, Crash.
Yep. Catapult's the answer to a question no one asked.
Yeah,
that's good.
Crash, we can't hear you. You cut out a little bit there, man.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, now you're back.
It must be Skype not picking me up. I was going to say that NR as a faction obviously has so many machines, and like the problem isn't that it doesn't have enough machines to put in the deck. The problem is that there's not enough synergy with these machines or a way to win with them past that one round. And so just adding another machine won't help. It'll do absolutely nothing, especially if it's just worse. So yeah, definitely need to see different cards.
I both agree and disagree, because the thing with NR machines is often that like you have the machines that you can just win the round with, and then like I feel that the problem with NR, and maybe I think it's from a deck building perspective, and it's from both a deck building perspective and also from the fact that the faction could definitely use a nice tune-up, is that like the strongest way I've found has just been to play a bunch of machines and then just do it all over again. Just go screw all traditional deck building and just be like, all right, well, these are okay. I'm just going to try and flood the board with them.
Yeah. Essentially, like, yeah, that will work, but it will never like be the top one deck, right? That's the problem. Like, again, NR has always just been okay because they just have okay cards and they have good synergy between them, so it's always going to work to some extent. But it's never, as it is currently, it's never going to be this insane deck that will just be unbeatable because, again, it has no real win condition.
You should have seen closed beta, man.
I wish I had. I've heard,
heard stories about Northern Realms. He's got 8
cards left. Why is he playing them all? But in regards to Sniki's earlier question, I think I was the only one who didn't answer. With are we worried about the game getting stale with in regards to these longer patch cycles? And I feel like I don't know, this patch just feels different to me. Yes, it feels less immediately impactful, and it keeps surprising me as being more over time, like people are just figuring out these small things, because the main thing that this patch has done is broken up the meta that we had last patch of just two factions who dominated everything.
Yeah.
And because of that, everyone's just like, oh, cool. Like, we don't have the go-to all-powerful deck. We don't have the other go-to all-powerful deck. Like, we can try everything. And I feel like that's what this patch is allowing us deck builders to do, is just try everything. And then eventually someone's going to come across some weird combination that really fills that spot.
I mean, this is truly a pretty fantastically balanced patch, all things considered. Like, some people will say that Spy Nilfgaard is a bit too strong, and sure, that's not necessarily untrue at all. But compared to other patches, faction diversity in terms of like balance is pretty great. Like, they've mostly nailed it. Minor complaints, but nothing more than minor. The problem ends up being, for me personally, and something that other people have expressed, is in terms of like the patch really being able to shake things up, right? The balance is there, but it does kind of feel a little bit as if, there's not enough diversity. Like Crash is saying, there's too many cards that you feel like you can't really play. So it feels like all the decks coming from last patch are just kind of the same ones as the deck coming from this patch, with the exception of like 2 or 3 kind of new decks cropping up, like the Hand Buff Squirtle one.
Cursed. Another one.
Yeah, and Cursed as well. Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. What else is Consume kind of really came back in its own fashion as well, although it's not something we haven't seen before.
I think, as Dale said, the best thing about the patch was that instead of now having 2 tier 1 decks, we kind of just have one, and everything else is more equalish in strength. And then along with that, SK as a deck, as a faction, has been completely broken up into like so many different decks that all work similarly well. So there's a lot of different decks running there. You've got like the X-Men that kind of still work. You've got the Veterans deck. You've got just Control SK that's very similar to the deck you actually brought to Gwent Slam Swim. And there's like the curse decks, and even within those decks themselves, there's still variations. So SK as a faction has had this like resurgence of just like creativity, whereas last patch it was so, do I maybe change this one bronze? Maybe.
I think that's a great way of putting it. Skellige right now is kind of the variation deck, right? They have a lot of different archetypes. They do have like a lot of very similar themes. They pretty much all run Freyas, typically like a couple Battle Maidens, and often the same brand package. Even I think that maybe, some people are running Herald Axemen, some people are running Bran Axemen. They feel like they have like a similar core, but definitely the most variations on that core for sure.
Definitely. NR again always has so many different variations. I think Red Rain's blue meme deck plays completely differently to just like say Hansel machines, so it's always fun to see. And then we've also got a small resurgence again of Reaver Hunters. I don't think they're good, but Dunkuro's playing them because they're fun,
Dunkuro loves his Reaver Hunters.
Dunkuro, if there's anybody who's gonna just die making Northern Realms work, it's like staying up till 5 in the morning. There's got to be something.
Interesting note about Redcoin: all of our members have the games played on Northern Realms. It was not intentionally made like this. We just somehow all played Northern Realms a lot when we started. So
you're
a Gwent team and you all main the same faction.
It's very good competitive.
I actually forgot about that.
It's very good competitive wise, because if somebody needs help with spies, we can all just be like, well, we don't know how to play them. Too bad. But I think the meta is pretty interesting right now. I hope it doesn't settle soon, but I also hope some amount of experimentation and some kind of like tier 3 decks stop being played as much, so I can take more advantage of countering the meta. So currently it's still a bit too random as to what I'm facing, so I can't like just stack in whatever I want.
Yeah, exactly. Oddly enough, this is almost the most kind of, I don't want to say stagnant, that's not the right word, but it feels like the most limiting point in the meta to make stuff for. Because early on there's new options, and later when it's super stagnated, you as a deck builder can do very creative things to counter a really precise meta. But in this middle ground, it does feel like you have the fewest options in terms of like really unusual stuff to create and make and tech new things.
Sure. It's just a problem because you face so many different types of decks and you can't even know what you're going to like face mainly, because I assumed, I'm only going to place against spies because it's the best decks, and then I face spies every 12th game or something, and it's just you can't do that yet. But then once it gets past that point, and even like the best decks get even optimized against counters, then it becomes stale. So hopefully that part doesn't come soon.
Yep. Yeah, and we were talking before, a little bit about Gwent's future. We were asking like whether we think that this kind of window, I think Sniki was saying that this kind of window might kind of damage Gwent because everyone is saying Gwent is dead, and it's kind of, the same meta, ultimately, all things considered, the same decks. I feel as if Gwent has a really, in terms of like Gwent really being able to capitalize on its future, I think they have a ton of great things planned, and I think they're honestly learning the things they need to learn to like make this game in this format, CDPR. The only question is like time. I feel like Gwent's development for me can really be summarized with like slow and steady. Like they're moving in a good direction consistently, but it is taking them time to get there. And I have no doubt that in this, in Gwent's future, like 6 months or a year from now, things are going to be looking great. New modes, single player, everything, lots of content, and like there will be a lot more deck diversity. I honestly have faith in that because I think they're going to be able to have a lot more interesting mechanics and archetypes built around those mechanics. But it is going to take a little bit of time to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It seems like Gwent has just consistently, as you said, been going in the right direction. We've seen sometimes where it's been major changes, sometimes where it's been minor changes. I feel like this is definitely a patch of just the minor side, and I don't know. We have things coming, and I feel like that's just been like the history of the Gwent beta has just been like we're working on it. Like it's getting there though.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Crash.
No, it's just from my perspective, since I've only really been playing Gwent since like summer, I wasn't a part of like this whole closed beta and like this really long stretch of time where like so much has changed, and I've only really been a part of say 2 or 3 major patches. My experience has just been great generally. I think when they shake up the meta, they shake it up enough to completely change the way the game is played and the way you build decks. And I'm just looking forward to what they bring next because, game's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're moving to the stage where there's no way that they're not eventually going to have like major expansions. I mean, they kind of haven't done it at this point because there hasn't necessarily been a need, but we're moving towards the stage where that's starting to become a possibility, in the coming several months or half a year or whatever. So, when that happens, I'm sure it'll be a big deal. Although it's possible it'll be even longer than that. We'll just have to see.
I was going to say, they've been pretty aggressive with 20 cards every 2 months, and to come out with anything more than that, I think would just be optimistic if we're thinking like anytime. Like, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
I've always been
Turnbreaker in 2019.
Optimistic.
I don't know. I'm almost certain they have more than 20 cards made or prepared every single patch.
Oh yeah,
they just kind of choose which ones to actually push forward. Like I don't think we'll see maybe more than 20 every two months, but a big expansion coming, I wouldn't be surprised by that.
So
no.
Anyway,
but I'm curious. So the other, we've been talking about the meta now for a little bit, but the other topic that we wanted to bring up a little bit was the upcoming tournaments. And as a good transition piece, I suppose, do we think that this patch was intentionally kept, smaller in terms of the meta, trying to break up or do any major changes with Gwent Open and these Gwent Slams coming up?
Yes, actually, I think it's true, because the first time I've heard about Gwent Open announcement and that it will be played on the next patch, I was thinking that it's pretty dumb. Like, if we are trying to make this very competitive, very e-sporty card game, just throwing people into a new meta like that and forcing them to play a tournament with decks that they are not very familiar with is a little bit bizarre. But since this patch is more, I'd say, simple, I guess you're correct, Dale. That was the reason for this patch simplicity.
I kind of don't agree with. I probably agree with the thing that the reason for this patch not being as big is probably that, but I don't actually agree with your thinking regarding this point. I think a bigger patch would actually promote competition, because when a new patch comes out, the people that are immediately on top of the ladder and doing very well are people that are the best in a sense of figuring out the best decks as fast as possible. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to make perfect plays and precisely like study a deck consistently, like completely down to every single turn, but they have the best understanding of the actual game, of the meta, of how to build a deck, and of how to play it immediately as soon as they start playing it. So I think a patch before a tournament isn't at all a bad idea, and actually promotes people, instead of just grinding one deck and getting, you know, those 0.5% win rate increases. It actually pushes having this fundamental understanding of how the game is supposed to be played and how to actually make decks. And I'm actually in favor of patches before tournaments. Now, let's say not a week before a bigger tournament, but I don't mind them a few weeks or maybe even a month before a bigger tournament.
Yeah. No, I'm personally in the same boat as well, Crash. I mean, obviously, you know, like 1 week before tournament is definitely too short, but it's better in my mind to keep things, you know, at least a little bit fresh. There's a good middle ground, a bit of a sweet spot you want to hit there, and I agree with the ranges you're giving out there. So in terms of Gwent Slam, specifically Petrify and Iceloth, I think it's pronounced Iceloth, were the two qualifiers for Gwent Slam 3, and I'm sure they're very excited to go. That's going to be in just a little under 4 weeks from now. Is that right? Or is it?
Yep, I think it's about right.
Yeah.
Yes,
3.5 weeks. Yeah. Okay, and it's going to be obviously probably one of the most exciting things to look forward to in the near future. I don't know. What do you guys think about the player roster showing up to Gwent Slam? The ones that we Petrify and Iceloth.
I don't know. Oh yeah, go
ahead. Go ahead. No, you're good.
No, after you.
Yeah. Too polite. But I for one want to know what ritual, what had to be sacrificed. Something had to have happened for Petrify's luck to have turned around like this. Like, I need to find out his secret. So I am extremely happy that to see him go into Gwent Slam. I think he's one of the deserving players to go for sure. And you know, I am most curious to see how well his luck holds up at Gwent Slam.
I'm looking forward to the tournament as always. There's one name I really want to see on there. But other than that, it's just going to be a great tourney. It's always going to have amazing players attending just because of the way qualifiers work. And it's always going to be exciting to see.
What name
I think, what name do I want to see? Well,
Crash Overlord.
Yeah, Sniki's got it. Sadly, the qualifiers did not go my way, and I got booted out of the tourneys in the first round twice. So yeah.
Every time I play in those qualies, I always stress the entire time to chat, you know, like, you shouldn't judge people for getting booted in round one. Like, it's single elim. It's a literal bloodbath. Like, some of the best players in the game are getting eliminated in the first 2 rounds. So, I mean, it's something that happens.
Yeah.
Anyway, Sniki?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm really happy that Petrify got a spot in Gwent Slam. He's a really nice dude, and he's a really great player, but I might be a little, say something controversial, but I was really hoping that Pasak actually would go, because not because of preference between Petrify and Pasak, but I felt like he was always so consistent on Pro Ladder last season, and he's somehow due to some bad luck or something like that. He gets snubbed a lot of the time. So
in terms of, he's very consistent with like tournament performance as well, typically qualifying or making it very deep into like tournaments or qualies.
He's always like that one spot before qualifying. It's super consistently almost in there. Quite. Definitely somebody else that deserves to go to a tournament like this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, Pasak is a pretty great player. Yep. So in terms of specifically this tournament coming up, the meta that we find ourselves in terms of this meta and what we expect to see, what we expect to be dominant, the kind of decks that pretty much everybody is going to bring. What are we thinking? I'm going to go ahead and steal the easy answer, Spy Nilfgaard. But apart from that, what are we thinking, Crash?
Probably an SK list. I'm still not sure if Cursed or non-Cursed is the best SK list. I'm expecting Cursed not to make it. And then I think we're just going to see either monster variants or ST variants as the third deck, since this is a 3-deck. Or is it 4 decks? I don't even remember now. But yeah, those are probably going to be like the three most popular.
It's 4, right, with one ban?
Right, it's 4. Then I'm not expecting to see much Northern Realm, if at all.
Do you expect people to bring monsters over Northern Realms?
Yeah, probably. Petrify played monsters to get through the qualifier, so there's a list there that's definitely not bad.
And of course, keep in mind, everyone, that this is still a month out. The meta will be shifting. This is a very just kind of preliminary. I'm just wondering, if anybody has any guesses.
We have a not so preliminary one coming up as well for next week, though.
That is true.
Because next week is not only Gwent Open, but also TGO Harvest. So I mean, we've got a lot of tournaments coming up that how the meta ends up shaping up for those is going to be interesting.
By the way, have the qualifier for Gwent Open already happened?
No, they're happening this weekend. So this Saturday is when the top 200 or however many will go play. Will be playing, and then on Sunday the top 16 will have, I think, a best out of 5 single elimination thing, if I remember correctly.
So you're playing in the qualifier, right?
Yeah.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Hope to see you guys in Gwent Open. That would be pretty nice.
But as far as the tournament meta is concerned, I think only real cool thing that I'm expecting is, since participants are locked to only one deck per faction, I am curious to see who's going to try and take maybe a little bit of risk versus.
Did we lose Dale? We lost him for a second there, buddy.
Definitely agree with that.
You're back, man. What were you saying?
I was just saying, as far as the tournament's meant to go, I'm curious who's going to take the riskier choice, since, if I'm not mistaken, participants are only limited to one deck per faction.
Yes.
Who's going to decide to try and bring Mill Nilfgaard over Spy Nilfgaard? Because it does have some, like... I like that deck.
No way.
It's deserving of a spot.
No.
Please, no.
No, it's not.
There's no way. I mean, that would be spicy to see, to say the least, though. And by spicy, I mean monotonous and overdrawn.
Especially if we get some game crashes going. that would be very lovely to see.
Oh, no, as much as seriously though, as much as people love to hate on Mill, I feel like it's odd to me that it's kind of gotten as much support as a legitimate deck as it has. But at the same time, I like having something out there to punish those 100% consistency decks.
The problem with Mill for me personally is not like that the archetype is so strong or it's so cancerous. Personally, for me, and I think for many people, is that just the issue with Mill is animation times in Gwent. Because they take so long, like every animation, every action takes so long, and it turns Mill game into like half an hour fiesta, which nobody enjoys.
Nobody.
I mean, if you play Mill, you enjoy it, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, Emir should just have a passive nose Dormu effect.
You know, as a game mode, the thing I would most like to see in Gwent is literally just a blitz mode. 15-second, no animation time.
More
no
than arena or single draft or anything?
Oh yeah, definitely. 100%, I would rather just play Gwent 15 seconds per turn. That's maximum. Maybe even drop it down to 12. No animation time and just go. That's my dream.
Speaking of
12 is even generous if you're taking animation times out of it. Might as well make it like 8 seconds.
Yeah, since you don't DJ time is still a bit long.
Those times when you just need to get your 400 pro ladder matches in and you only have an afternoon.
I mean, I played 300 6 seconds per turn strategy game things in a day, so it would definitely be my cup of afternoon tea. Coffee, water, glass.
Yeah. By the way, guys. Speaking, if we are talking about game modes, I've been wondering what is your opinion on like if the Gwent tournaments had a sideboard? Is it something which could be possible in Gwent? Is it really feasible, or you think it's not the game that
I feel like sideboards haven't really been great at fitting the like digital card game format as much. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because honestly, I don't have a huge amount of experience in like competitive card game formats. I feel like multi-deck has been kind of the more popular format since the switch to digital, and I feel like that's pretty warranted, honestly.
I think in order for any type of sideboard, because it's something that we tried out in some of those earlier TGOs, was trying to get a sideboard going. And I think the number one thing holding it back in the digital format is a lack of official in-game support. I think as soon as you have an actual in-game sideboard that you're able to swap things in and out of in between matches, then it could take off. But without that and having to track all of that either through a third-party app or just manually through the admins, it just takes too long to try and get things sorted out, and that's where I think multi-deck shines, where it's very simple.
Yeah, Crash, I'm very curious what your thoughts on this issue are.
I actually don't have that much experience in general with like CCGs, TCGs, so I've never played a tournament with sideboarding, other than I guess if you consider infinite sideboarding still like a tournament, but it really doesn't.
It's not.
It has a potential of working, but I'm more curious how fun it would be to watch rather than to play, because watching kind of the same two general decks being played with one or two deck choices isn't quite fun 3 times in a row.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. Yeah, I mean that's the experience we had, because we, like Dale was saying, we had run some tournaments with sideboards, and we had come up to that experience where there were certain tournaments early on. I'm kind of guessing, but to you, February maybe, where it was just kind of like the same deck over and over again. It just wasn't as great as multi-deck, unfortunately, especially without the support for it. It's definitely pretty interesting, though. I mean, Gwent does have the opportunity, because of its unique format. It's super different format from every other card game. Gwent does have the opportunity, maybe like a year from now, 18 months from now, when they're developing their tournament scene more, and when they've established truly their identity as a game and what kinds of cards they want to print. Because right now, that's still a little bit in flux. They have the potential to kind of push maybe new ideas for tournament modes. Like there could be some slightly tweaks on rule sets that just kind of fit Gwent's fundamental format just a little bit better. And I think that's, a really interesting idea they can play around with down the road.
There's a lot of interesting formats that I think can be tried out and you can have special tourneys for. But as a main format type of thing, you can't do something too special because it becomes harder to follow, first of all, for the viewer. So if there are additional rules that the viewer has to know, then it becomes, another step forward for the viewer to make to actually like understand what's happening. But when we're talking about fun ideas, there's so many different types. You could even do a one faction tournament where you bring a deck for each leader, stuff like that, and just see who builds better NR decks with each leader. Because I think a lot of like this current the way it's currently made is like you just bring the best leader in the faction, the best deck per faction, right? And then you just do that 3 times. It would be interesting to see if say somebody decides to bring NR only and then has to bring, Foltest, Henselt, and Radovid. And then somebody else decides to bring NG and has to bring Emir, Morvran, and Kalvit. Right? That would be an interesting tournament format to see played, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm very much looking forward to see like if they will try to make any tweaks on that. I think you gave a really good point that a lot of people don't think as much about, which is that they do need to be simple. I mean, that's pretty much the reason why you don't see too many big tournaments running Strike, because Strike is just not as straightforward for the viewer experience as, something like Conquest with bans. And Conquest with bans is really straightforward. It still has a lot of capacity for, strategical planning for players as well. So it's totally fine in that department. Anyway, one thing that Dale did cover before is that we are having the TGO Harvest. It's going to be this month, November 18th, currently, presented by Matthew J. Clardy, who is sponsoring the tournament. You can sign up for that now at Gwentlemen.com/TGO. And keep in mind that this is going to be the last TGO before we have the TGO Top 8 Finals. And the winner of TGO Harvest is going to be the 8th contestant for the Top 8 TGO Finals, which is the culmination of the top 8 winners, each winner from each of the 8 TGOs, to end out the year before going into whatever cycle we're going to have for you guys next calendar year. But anyway, I think that's going to be it for our topics today. So it's just about time to turn over to viewer questions. Now, if you guys, SnikiSnek, Crash, and Dale, if you guys have any viewer questions as viewers, if you have any questions...
Wait, what?
What I like to do is when I'm in the segment, and if I have any topics I want to bring up, I kind of pretend like I'm reading viewer questions, and I just make something up. This would be a fantastic opportunity for you guys to exploit that. Just pretty much free topic range at this point.
Wait, I'm confused. Can somebody give me an example, like Crash? Like,
what do you mean me? This is the first time I'm here. I'm as confused as you are. Dale,
Okay.
help. Help with your experience.
Oh man, I'm not good with like on the spot stuff.
Oh, swim. What's the next tournament you're casting?
The next tournament I'm casting?
Yes.
Ooh.
Like a big tournament or a small tournament?
Just, a tournament.
TGO Harvest.
Okay. What's the next tournament you're casting?
I can't answer that question. Well, why? Wait, why? Was that your viewer question? Was that just something you were asking?
That's my view.
Oh. I like this. I like this question just because I don't know. What mouse grip do you guys use? Palm, claw, or fingertip?
Claw.
For a card game?
Dude, I don't play this game like a card game. I have a 22-inch mouse pad and a bungee. Dude, this is not just a card game. Your APM matters. If you want to rope every single turn until you have literally like 5.5 seconds left to play your entire combo, you're gonna need that APM. You're gonna need to be able to flick reliably to a position on your screen and input your commands, Dale. This is not just a card game.
I've been playing it wrong the whole time.
I don't know. I barely even use the mouse. Like click once, and then your opponent concedes or disconnects. So that's my strategy.
So
maybe very effective.
Besides Gwent, what you guys have been maybe playing recently, like some games or something?
I only play like really, really terrible indie games that like pretty much anybody can make in Flash.
Have you played Kindergarten? It's like no, it's like an indie game.
No, I have never heard of it.
It's like a puzzle adventure. You should play it instead of Gwent.
Yeah, I'll just become a kindergarten streamer.
Wait,
I might get arrested for that.
I mean, variety streams are better than Gwent. Like when you streamed South Park, it was way more exciting to watch. You know, who cares about Gwent? That game.
Okay, here's a question: do you think monsters are dead, and why not? I'm gonna put that "dead" in quotation marks there. I mean, so basically, I wouldn't use the word "dead." I feel like compared to their previous states, like I mean, so people have been asking for a while, like, when will monsters finally die? Given the context of that question, yes, I guess monsters are dead. But I don't know if I'd fairly objectively call them dead. They are still a lot closer than I feel a lot of people think to being competitive, but I would say safely that they are a below average faction right now.
Yeah, I think...
I just want to say what I think is certain regarding monsters is that some of them might not be dead, but they are certainly undead.
But no, like I don't think in regards to the previous, like, you know, monsters everywhere just too good. Yes, that version is dead, but like as a faction, of course not. I think, especially with as long as the game's been out, if we compared any faction to its highest point, it's so much worse now. I think across the board, like there's no faction that's reached its the same level as where it's peaked previously, and I think that's for the best, because a lot of times we've seen factions just take over metas and define metas, and we're getting to more of a, you know, everybody's can get a piece of the pie. So is monsters dead? I don't think so, but I think that they could use a little bit more love, particularly in their faction identities. You know, there's Consume, there's Swarm, there's sort of Death Wish that needs some more support still. So I think we get some additional card changes there and additional new cards, then Monsters is going to be seeing these sort of, you know, latent archetypes, you know, come into prominence.
I will say, in regards to monsters, certain things feel very close. Like, for example, Deathwish has amazing support. Like, Cockatrice is inherently a very good card, and like so is cards like Griffin in theory. The problem is that they don't actually have any good cards that have the word Deathwish on them. I believe, now correct me if I'm wrong, I think I was talking with you about this, Crash, and I think you agreed. But
essentially, the best Deathwish monsters actually have, well, it's either Necker, and you see that with the Consume decks, or Rotfiend, which is Rotfiend. So yeah, I mean, when Rotfiend's your best Deathwish, you don't have a Deathwish, so you've got to find other wishes of life.
Yeah, but the archetype is actually surprisingly close to being competitive. It just needs like one solid, like very solid card that has the word Deathwish on it, and suddenly it actually sees play.
For sure, like the combo of, say, Sheet Roll into Slizzard, the card that you Sheet Rolled into like a Griffin or a Cyclops, is actually immensely strong if the Deathwish itself is strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm actually very happy about the state of monsters right now. I just hate the faction with a passion.
I think most people are.
Yeah. Just hope that one day, I don't know, I fall into coma for a month, I wake up and it just patch notes, monsters deleted from the game, replaced by Cockatrice faction or something. Because it's stupid faction. Just,
yeah. Anyway, any more viewer questions? Again, anyone who has any, just tag at Gwentlemen in chat. For now, we have... How would you rank the factions at this current time? Well, Crash said earlier, and I pretty much agreed with him, probably Nilfgaard, Skellige, Scoia'tael, Monsters, Northern Realms, I think is pretty much what you said, Crash?
Something like that. I think very, like, ST, NR, and Monsters are very close. Yes. I wouldn't put one faction over the other. ST has the easiest deck builds and way to play the decks, though, I think. I think Spelletel and Self-Buff are both much easier to play and build than either monster decks that aren't consumed or NR decks especially. Yeah. So you see more ST on the ladder and they feel stronger and more coherent, but that doesn't necessarily make them better when you're looking at the best player. Obviously, you see Redraim at 1400 FMMR at, like, on NR, which is supposedly the worst faction, and
yeah, I kind of agree with something you said earlier, Crash, which is that Northern Realms is probably the faction that maybe has the most unlocked potential to still be found a little bit. So I actually might say that in regards to that potential, I feel like I might actually put NR above Monsters, but yeah, that's pretty much the same list I would give.
What do we think about the potential of NR decks running 30 plus cards?
Crash, our resident Northern Realms expert.
I wish I could play Casino Hansel like the previous patch, the one where Dagon was here with 3 different deck types. I wish I could play that Casino Hansel where you just literally put in 40 cards and you would still win like 70% of your games and still like get the GM just because you could play it. 30 plus card NR hasn't been good since then, I think. Not to the extent where it's a legitimate tier 1 deck. It can make its way again. Like in NR, pretty much whatever you put in will always be tier 3 or tier 2 and just be okay. But the problem persists with not having a finisher. So the NR decks that have the best finisher are the best NR decks, in my opinion.
Yep. Yeah, no, I completely agree.
That's why you see, like, for NR, that's why you see, like, Arcanishus, Control, Hansel, like, from previous patch, and Redraim's, like, Blue Meme. They have very specific round 3 actual win conditions in the form of either Bork or Blue Dreaming a DJ and just getting value that way. It's kind of outvaluing your opponent even in round 3. And I think those are, like, the best possible NR decks, the ones that actually have around 3 win conditions. So just playing more cards doesn't accomplish that. It literally reduces your capability to have a good round 3 because it's less consistent.
Yep. Okay, here's one. Which leader do you think needs the most tweaks or changes, and why is it Herald? So first, can anybody think of a leader that they would name here instead of Herald?
I'm seeing Elder.
I think thematically, I just wouldn't touch Herald because he's supposed to be a cripple.
Herald is my lore.
Probably Herald is he's just kind of strong but has no synergy. So you would need an actual either you push its strength so high that synergy doesn't matter anymore and then it's just oppressive, or you completely remake him. That's the reason Herald is in the state that he is. Because if you overbuff him, he becomes oppressive and really bad to play against. You just don't feel good because he's clearing the board and just making too much value. But if he's not good enough, synergy obviously just overcomes small points, you know?
Yep. I agree completely. One of the things that I think a lot of people don't talk about Herald is I feel like he's a little confused whether he wants to be like an engine card or a finisher. Like his effect kind of incentivizes you to play him early, but it kind of incentivizes you to play him late as well. Like after Axeman, so it does feel just a little bit hard to really find a place for him.
Yeah, I feel if we're talking like maybe not about Herald, Unseen Elder certainly needs a rework. But I just think like count how many leaders can be a liability. What I'm trying to say, if you play a leader, it will be actually worse for you. So imagine if your board state has a lot of high strength units, and you have your remaining card is Unseen Elder, so you have to play him, right? But playing him opens you up for a Giant Scourge or Gigni or Villantrentiment, Willy Borg. So that's why I think he should be reworked in some way.
Necker, especially with the Harpy changes, I think Elder is actually in a much better spot than he was like previous patch. Like previous patch, Elder was not good. This patch, I think Elder as a leader has synergy outside of just, hey, it's consuming Harpy eggs. You can actually use him in a deck where you're running Harpies and you just want to eat some beasts. Or you can use it. You can also gain the consume synergies from it. If you for some reason decide to play Araha's Behemoth in your deck, he's still got synergy and he's at play. It is just a vulnerable leader to certain cards, right? But that can honestly be said for other leaders that are good as well.
Yeah.
Like Hansel is very vulnerable to removal because if they remove all your Hansel targets, tough luck, right?
Yeah.
And again, Foltest has the problem of being very low tempo, etc., etc. Every leader has their drawback, other than Emir, but let's leave it. But yeah, essentially. I think as far as synergy based on like how leaders actually are, I think most leaders are fairly well placed into their synergy bracket. And if anything, it's actually the cards in the deck rather than the leaders that would need changing.
I was about to say exactly that. Like I was gonna say like I'd probably sooner change like the bronze package for consume cards like Arrakis, Behemoth, and Ghoul probably before I change Elder. Although Elder easily could be changed and be beneficial for consume absolutely as well. But isn't Crash isn't the interaction with Unseen Elder where he can summon multiple harpies? Isn't that a bug?
Is that a bug? I'm assuming the game. The interaction where if you pass and then a harpy gets carried over, but if your opponent passes and then you pass, it doesn't. That's probably a bug.
They fixed that one.
They fixed that. Oh,
they fixed it.
Yeah. That one got fixed in the teeny tiny little hotfix.
I didn't know. Is that
when they
a bug
the
or is that intended?
Well, I think harpies are supposed to only come out once per turn, with the exception of Unseen Elder causing it.
Huh.
Unless I'm mistaken. Like if you use Stammelford's Drummers and kill 3 beasts, it doesn't normally work.
Well, then I'm wrong. Unseen Elder's just horrible. Rework him, please.
Yes. Someone in chat asks, should Vanandal Elite be able to target Silver Spies?
Yeah.
I guess. Maybe the question should be like, should he target your side of the board at all, or he should be only enemy side?
Yeah, no, why not? There's no reason for Vanandel Elite to not be able to hit your counter. I mean, it's a pretty balanced card. It's a little bit swingy, and swingy is not necessarily great, but it's not too swingy, and it requires a lot of prep just to get what is effectively a 21-point bronze, which honestly sounds a lot better than it is for like that much prep and that much unreliability. There's always a really inherent risk there. So.
And then you're risking that your opponent doesn't have a heal effect and just gets the points back anyway. I agree. But I agree. I think that being able to target your own spies, being able to target your own side of the board is fine with Vanandal Elite. It's in an okay spot. That was definitely a card that I was very concerned about, and I still am very concerned about, but it seems to have found its place in the meta so far, and its place is kind of, sure, let them have it.
Yeah, I remember when the card was announced, people would say that, oh my god, NG broken, the strongest card in the game, something.
Yeah. If you could design a finisher for Northern Realms, what would it be like?
Oh, jeez. That's too tough for me. I'm not a card designer.
Bloody Baron?
Yeah. Stop reminding me of good times past, man. Like Hansel River Hunters. Actually, if I want a finisher for NR, make Field Medic more consistent. So make it so Field Medic cannot bring out Field Medic. So when you put something in, Field Medic can't be the bronze that comes out. I really like that. That would make Field Medic absolutely broken. So you have a finisher. I don't think it's a good change. I think it's a broken change, but I really like Field Medic, and it's a super fun card to play, and that would make it stronger. So I'm all for that change, even if it's imbalanced.
Field Medics can't target Field Medics, right?
No, they can't target Field Medics, but when you put a bronze unit back into your deck, Field Medic can
what I would
come out.
Like to see almost as maybe not that change, but at least allow them to blacklist the card that they've put back in the deck.
Oh, no. That's horrible. That defeats the point of Field Medics.
Yeah, you got to send back scouts and get scouts and hunters.
You Field Medic, Reaver Scout. You get Reaver Scout. Pull out another Field Medic with Reaver Scout. Put back Reaver Scout. Pull out Reaver Scout. Target Field Medic again. Put Reaver Scout back in. Get Reaver Scout again. And then Reaver Scout something. And then you've got an 18-point bronze plus Reaver Scout effect. And then that's a pretty fun card.
I don't know. I've been burned a couple of times on those guys of putting back in a light cavalry and then getting another Field Medic and then putting back in another light cavalry and then getting the first one back.
Yeah.
See, that's right.
But no, as far as like an actual like designing a finisher card for Northern Realms, I feel like they keep getting close. We've seen cards, especially with this patch, we've had have a Radovid trying to enable at least some type of machine carryover. Germain of Fox Hollow also kind of enables more of a swarm archetype with Northern Realms with very few cards. Like that type of thing it's close to having a proper Northern Realms finisher. It just needs something to like maybe we see carryover similar effect with a silver card of the siege supports adding +1. Maybe something like that can do it. Maybe just a solid like silver machine of some sort to combo. Maybe something along those lines. Because I feel like it's close with Northern Realms, but there's just nothing. There's the support for a finisher card, but there's no finisher card.
Yeah.
The problem with NR finishers or like NR cards in general is that they're reliant on your opponent to have a board. Like, sure, you can, have 2 crewmen and shiny a ballista and hit 5 targets 3 times, and that's, you're playing 26 points and that's broken. But you need your opponent to have 5 units on board. So what a finisher that's good in Gwent is actually either a lot of carryover, as you see Consume, or you saw previous patch Restore Skellige with 17
even
Chimeras.
Current Restore Skellige even a little bit.
Yeah, even a little bit. Or you need such a powerful combo that your opponent can't beat it in one card. That's where you see Joachim, whatever, NG card. That's where you saw the Raiko list where it ran, Shani Stennis DBLC or, something Commander's Horn. You need this very strong point combo or you need carryover.
Yep.
And if you're relying on machines, that you're never going to get that reliably because you're relying on your opponent to have a board. And if it's a short round where a finisher is useful, then you don't get finisher. So I think actually creating a finisher for NR is extremely not difficult, also very dangerous, because if NR gets the strongest finisher, like Shani, Stennis, DBLC, it becomes very oppressive because Did I say DBLC? DBHC, sorry.
Yeah.
It becomes very oppressive because NR can't lose a long round machines, and they can't lose a short round because of their finisher. And then how do you beat them? So be careful with NR finishers, because they can get very oppressive, because NR as a faction is extremely good at long rounds already.
Well, but can't you describe pretty much every like competitive deck in that way, in terms of like the ability to play both a long round and short round? I mean, that's what Spy Nilfgaard is, right? You can't really beat them long, and you can't really beat them short either.
There are decks that can beat them long, and there are...
Sure, that's true.
You can actually beat them short, you know, you've got Consume Nectars that can actually... right? But there are other problems with the different decks that can beat it. And that's also why, I mean, personally, there's two reasons I don't like Spy NG, and it's because I hate playing them. It's RNG every single turn, so I just don't like them. And it's also because their strategy is just very oppressive, as I said, and as you confirmed.
Yeah.
There is not much you can do. You can either run all the counters to it, and then you'll beat them, but then you'll lose to every other deck. And that's why you can't just say, oh, hey, NR isn't strong enough, let's build them the strongest finisher, because that's how you make one faction really obnoxious.
Yeah, I mean, you just create a second Nilfgaard at that point, potentially. Yeah, I mean, that I think you've really clearly identified like one of the biggest problems with NR right now, maybe the biggest. I mean, pretty much every competitive deck has a short round 3 plan, whether it's carryover or some of the things that you didn't mention, like, you know, you were just throwing out examples, but Squirtels, Dolbothana Protectors, and Swordmasters as well. Like, pretty much every competitive deck has a very solid short round plan, and that's just kind of where Northern Realms feels like it falls short compared to the others. Absolutely. Anyway, that I think is going to be all the time we are going to have for this iteration of our Gwentlemen Talk Show. Thanks very much for our guest, Crash Overlord, for coming on. Crash, if the viewers would like to find you, I heard that you're a streamer. Where can they do that?
They can follow at twitch.tv/crash_overlord, where I stream almost daily. No, but really, thank you for having me on the talk show. It's been great fun, and I'd love to do this again at some point.
Yeah, man. And then we had our slightly impromptu guest, SnikiSnek. Any closing statements or shout outs? Any plugging you want to do? You want to plug anything?
Subscribe to SwimStream.
Dale, you have anything at all?
As always, I like to shout out the communities of Gwent. You can check out the official Gwent subreddit over at gwent.reddit.com. From there, you can find a link to the official Gwent Discord. You can also find a link to the Ask Gwent Discord, which if you're a new player trying to get into Gwent, it's a great resource for you, where you just ask a question, get an answer pretty easily. Also, shout out to the official forums if you're trying to get more and another great community, another very close to CDPR's heart because it is on their servers. You can check out the official forums for that as well. I think that's about it as far as I have for this week.
Oh, okay. Well, I'd like to give a shout out to Twitch chat, because as always, this wouldn't be possible without you guys. Stay classy. And we'll see you guys next week. Bye.